I am 13 years old, and I am sitting in the principal's office by my own volition. You see, that day, Sonia Savage cornered me in the bathroom stall of the girls' room at lunch, and she said, "I'll see you after school." I'm sitting in the chair, staring at the big round clock on the wall, wishing that the red hand would move more slowly. And at 3:45 exactly, the bell rings. And I wait 5 whole minutes before I muster the courage to walk down the corridor. And I get to the front doors, and I open them. No kids. And I start walking forward on the grassy field. And as I'm walking, I notice there's a few kids on the left of me around my same age. And a few kids, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders on my right. Something's up. My heart starts racing. I keep walking. I'm almost to the top of the hill. I can see my house from here. And by now, there is a crowd of kids around me, too many to count. And I'm standing smack dab in the middle. Dear God, just let me make it home today. I see Sonia and her friend approaching. I know it's her. She has bone straight hair that comes past her waist, and she has that light blue heavy eyeshadow. And she and her friend start striding toward me, and the crowd of kids parts open like Moses parting the Red Sea. And they're standing right in front of me. Time stands still. What's she going to do? Punch me? Kick me? Kill me? Her friend is eating a piece of pepperoni pizza, and she chews it, and she spits it on me. And I'm wearing a blue and white checkered flannel shirt, and there's a gummy, gooey, gross, phlegmy piece of pepperoni sitting on me. And then I feel ping, ping on my back, and the other kids proceed to spit on me too. Fortunately, by this point, my brother, who can see what's happening from our house, runs across the street. "Help! Help! My sister's getting beat up." And before I know it, a woman yanks my hand, pulls me out of the circle, says to the troops, "Go home, the lot of you," and pulls me to safety in her home. And I'm sitting at the kitchen table. I remember looking around at the 70s wallpaper, all flowery, and smelling freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. And she offers me one. And I bite into it. And I have to tell you, to this day, it is the best chocolate chip cookie I have ever eaten. That day on the hill, something happened in me. I didn't know it then, but I surely know it. I surely know it now. Before that day, I was a young, vivacious, curious, loving, spunky girl. After, I walked away believing something about myself that I would carry with me for a very long time. I believed I was weak. After all, why would people bully me or beat me up? This is one story. There are others. Each one of us carries stories, imprints, memories within us. What's yours? Each of those narratives points to the ways that we begin to abandon ourselves very early on in life out of fear. The seemingly little ways that we chip away from the fabric of who we really are, and we separate from our true, loving, and innocent nature. So fast forward a couple of decades, and I'm a successful business owner in my 30s, a wife and a mother, and I'm feeling really unsettled and, quite frankly, bone tired. That girl who got bullied is still trying to prove herself to Sonia Savage, the girl with the long straight hair and the heavy blue eyeshadow. I spent most of my 30s trying to polish the image of the woman who had it together all of the time, creating a life out of who I thought I should be versus who I really was. Endless striving and pushing and perfecting and protecting. Exhausting. So one Sunday morning, my husband approaches me, and he's a little hunched over, and his eyes said it all. And he looks at me and says, "Tova, are you aware of how defensive you are?" "No, and here's why you're wrong." In business, I was turning away growth opportunities and the opportunity to take on new clients for fear I wasn't ready enough or prepared enough. A woman in Austin of a prestigious organization repeatedly asked me, "Will you speak to our newcomers?" Before I knew it, that little girl, once fearless, who went into hiding that day on the hill, answered for me, "No thanks, not sure I'm a good fit." Any perceived flaw or vulnerability was tucked safely away like a kid sticking her chewing gum underneath the desk so as not to get caught. No way was I going to risk re-experiencing the pain and humiliation of that girl on the hill. So one day, I am exhausted by 10 a.m., and I muster the courage to invite my friend over for coffee before cleaning the house. And she comes to the front door, she opens it, and she glances around taking inventory, and she says, "Tova, I'm so glad to see you have a dirty house too." Oh, shit. Exposed. Panic. I feel a lump in my throat, and it drops all the way down into my gut and my hips. At the time, I can't identify what's going on. I just know it feels really familiar and really uncomfortable and really bad. Guess what? Nothing bad happened that day. I didn't die. I've got all my fingers and my toes. And as a matter of fact, my friend and I had the most authentic, transparent, real conversation that we had had up until that point. She actually confided in me that she felt more connected to me somehow. Who knew? Nice to notice. In that moment, My strategy of making false appearances was on the out. I started to wake up. Wake up to the fact that if the circumstances of my life were going to change, it had to begin with me. And later that evening, as I am reviewing my mile-long to-do list for the next day's activities, I hear a voice. It stops me in my tracks. It's a whisper. It's soft but quite potent. This is not the familiar voice that dominated my awareness without question or challenge. It was much softer. Who are you? Who have you become? What happened to that young, vivacious, resilient, loving girl? And in that moment, I decided to find out, to reclaim that part of me, to examine everything that held me back from living out of my true loving nature. And it began with a simple question. Is it true? Or is the belief that I am weak a lingering imprint from a terrified child on the hill? This is where I began to grow up. And I had the courage to ask, to keep asking every day after that, is it true? And guess what I found out? It's not true. The opposite is true. I am strong. And not because I can stand up to bullies like Sonia or beat people up. It's because I am that vivacious, loving child right here, right now. There is so much strength in me. This is my true nature, and it always has been as far as I can tell. So let's fast forward another decade and maybe some change to now. I'm an executive coach and a leadership consultant. Now I am bringing that strength forward in my work and in my relationships by showing up authentically, transparently, taking risks. There's nothing to prove any longer. Sometimes I'm sitting on the phone and I'm ready to get on a call with a client, and I hear the voice, Tova, you're in way over your head. Okay, these are really important people. And I choose in the moment to stay present, grounded, clear, and I listen to my intuition. And I say what I need to say in order to help people grow and move forward. This is love. I show up with love, and I lead others from the most loving place inside of me. And guess what? At the end of those phone calls, I often hear, wow, Tova, this was the best phone call yet. I'm able to do this because I transformed the belief of the young girl who thought she was weak. She learned not to trust herself. I had to learn to love and to trust me first. And this is what I teach leaders. I invite them to reclaim who they are. And I watch transformations in leadership happen before my very eyes. So what do I mean by the word leader? You might be thinking to yourself, well, what does this have to do with me? Leaders are born. or I don't have the education or the experience or the background or the title to be a leader. In my experience, a leader is anyone that holds themselves accountable for the impact they create. So yes, I can be a leader in a boardroom, and I'm also a leader when I volunteer in my community. And when I show up and I coach kids on the soccer field. Or when I'm preparing dinner and I set the emotional tone for my family. I create impact. I'm getting ready for bed. After a marathon day, I'm pulling the covers over me, and my daughter walks in. Mommy, I am feeling really anxious about my presentation tomorrow. What if I fail? I can see her vulnerability, and I find a way to get present for her. Let's figure this out together. Let's get bigger than the fear. I create impact. A couple of days ago, I'm at the airport, and the gentleman behind the ticket counter deletes my data for the third time. And I take pause, and instead of taking my frustration out on him, I choose to show him kindness and respect and appreciation. You must be having a hard day too. It takes guts. It takes moxie for me to surface the elephant in the room amidst 20 gray-haired executives with blank stares sitting at that U-shaped conference table. Or for me to interrupt the so-called expert strutting his stuff in the room. I create impact. It is painstakingly clear to me when the young girl on the hill takes the lead in my life today. I contract. I get small. I hold my voice back. And I find that she is ill-equipped to handle the complexity of my life today. But when I can stand here, awake, conscious, aware, as my 50-year-old grounded self, in touch with who I really am, that's love. That's leadership. That's where my leadership flourishes. I'm expansive. I let people in. I'm relaxed. I smile more. And I'm able to reach out to people like Sonia for connection in spite of her attempts to still make me feel small. If I disconnect today, that's on me. I believe at the deepest level of my being that each one of us possesses the capacity to love and to lead with fierce conviction. And I believe that each one of us can unleash that potential here and now to create significant positive impact. I am here to show you the power of love and what's possible when we invite it into our lives and our leadership. Today, I invite you to do 3 things to elevate your leadership with love. First, wake up. Pay attention to the love that resides within you, as you, through you. Get still. I mean really still. Pray. meditate, take a walk, journal. Stop distracting yourself from looking inside for what's true and who you are. Rumi says, listen, make way for yourself inside yourself. Stop the other way of looking. Second, grow up. Those younger, less mature voices that are living inside your head rent-free. Your kid on the hill. Get to know her, ask her what she needs. Tell her you love her, but she doesn't get to steer the ship anymore. Thank you for being here, and it's time to move out. Third, show up. Stay all in. Love first. Extend trust first. Be who you are, the most authentic version of yourself. Resist the temptation to shut down and close off. I find I may temporarily numb the pain, but guess what? I also diminish my capacity to experience joy. A price way too high for me to pay. I have tested this over and over again. When you find yourself talking crap to yourself, stop. Ask yourself, really ask yourself, what would it look like to love myself right now in this moment? Maybe you don't know. I surely didn't. Be willing to stay present for yourself and with yourself until you do. Don't abandon yourself out of fear. At the end of the day, I believe that we are all doing the best that we can to make a difference and live a fulfilling life with what we know. I can choose to focus on what's at risk. I might fail. I might look foolish. I might get hurt. I can even tell myself the story that if I let go, I'll be condoning bad behavior. Or I can have the courage to take 3 steps forward. Wake up, grow up, show up. Our world is in transition. And I consider myself an integral part of this global transition team, doing my small part of this transition work each and every day. And I believe that it's only when each one of us can hold ourselves accountable for the impact of our leadership that we can truly catalyze a new earth. Leadership is in your hands. I commit to this path every day. Will you join me? Thank you.